times in the NRG series. You see Theodore Jung on the left playing a Jeskai Delver versus someone you've seen in the feature match area today playing against Grixis Delver. Brandon Darnell on his take on Doomsday. So we will see exactly how things break out here. Instead of black cards, though, things like Orcish Bowmaster, what have you, like we saw Brandon fell earlier, there is the Forth Eorlingas? I don't know, you're better at saying it than I am. The new Monarch card that has come out of the Tales of the Middle-earth set from Magic the Gathering's most recent release. So here's a turn 1 Ponder off of Scalding Tarn. Julian, you said previously this matchup's bad for the black version. Discard, I'm sure, part of the equation. Jeskai, is that going to be easier or harder for Brandon?
It's certainly going to be easier. Like, there's a couple of white cards that you don't really care all that much about. Like, I guess in this version, it's really only Swords to Plowshares, of which we only got 2 copies of. The Forth Eorlingas, I'm trying to get that right. It's an interesting card because technically, Brandon doesn't really care about it all that much because it's like a 3-mana spell that doesn't do all that much, and also like the Monarch and everything. Like, it takes a while to become active. But there's like this scenario where Brandon is not ready for a haste creature out of Delver because that's not something it's known for. So all of a sudden, like, we might be looking at a scenario where like Theodore is sitting on 4 lands, and then like how much damage? That's like 4 extra damage to the face when Brandon least expected it. So that's interesting. But other than that, without black, without like the Bowmasters, without any kind of like, I'm not even like looking at the sideboard model, but usually like white doesn't offer that much and stuff that you can do. I think it's gonna be easier for Brandon, but you're still up against Delver, and that's just a problem. Like Lightning Bolt, Daze, Force of Wasteland, Quick Clock. I think first of all, Brandon is just happy that Theodore didn't have a turn 1 creature. Like whenever Delver goes first and goes turn 1 Ponder, half the format like size is like, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you there. And with taking the Daze and now Dark Ritual into Doomsday on turn 2, we saw a little bit of, put the Thoughtseize, into the graveyard along with his land, seeing the Wasteland, was able to follow up with an Underground Sea into a Dark Ritual into Doomsday. And like you mentioned before, these really, really fast kills and presenting Doomsday as quickly as you possibly can is the way to do it if you're looking to beat Delver, a matchup that we've seen Brandon Darnell defeat already once in the feature match area. Theo, once again, Doomsday gonna resolve. We'll see if Theo can do anything about the pile after the fact. But you mentioned, Jeskai Delver are going to be a little bit easier to defeat after if you have to pass the turn than even the Grixis version was. And so Brandon already looking to be off to a good start with this turn 2 Doomsday.
What Theo wants here is probably something like an end of turn Lightning Bolt and then another Wasteland, because one of the best ways to disrupt Doomsday when they go for like one of these early piles is to just like hit their mana really hard. If they want to account for that, they have to put a bunch of lands into the Doomsday pile, which slows them down, which then like allows Theo to maybe like get a creature down and win before Brandon gets all the lands that he needs. So yeah, if there's another Wasteland, I think it's going to be problematic for Brandon. Of course, he could build piles that involve, like LEDs that we've seen before. And maybe that's actually what's going on here. I'm not even going to pretend that I can tell you which pile he's going to build. It's going to be a surprise for both of us. But Brandon already has like a pretty good idea of, actually, yeah, he has a pretty good idea of what he's up against. He does know that there's a White Splash. I think this game it won't be relevant. And yeah, Theo must just like maximize the stuff he's got. Ideally, end of turn Bolt, untap into creature plus some kind of permission. It's kind of awkward because from what we can tell, it's like pretty clear that Theo doesn't have a Force of Will or a Daze, which in turn, of course, makes it more likely that he has Lightning Bolts.
Right.
Come on, push it a little bit
further. Or another Wasteland, right? Which we saw his hand from the Thoughtseize. So it could be, there's a lot of draw steps that can happen, especially after resolving things like a Ponder and stuff like that. But overall, I think Brandon has a pretty good idea of what he needs to cover. We have seen a copy of Lightning Bolt for sure, but with 9 health, like you need a lot more than just 1 in order to end the game. You're going to need some additional help. Let's see if we can get a good look at the pile here. I see Edge of Autumn, Street Wraith, Thoracle. Didn't get a great look at the rest. Maybe a pile that can't beat a Wasteland?
I love that you're adapting to the shirt Brandon is wearing. You called it health, 9 health. Yeah, this is what we do in Doomsday, right? In Magic Life Points now, we have health. I love that.
Life total is very much a resource here for the Doomsday deck who has to lose half of their health most of the time for this game to be won. As Theodore taking a look, doing a quick count, as we've seen players do very often. Kind of one of the awkward parts of Doomsday, like just revealing the entire deck is like, all right, can I work backwards and figure out what their Doomsday pile is going to be? And
it's also quite interesting. It's also quite interesting. Theo has that Volcanic Island up, right? Which once again tells us he didn't have turn 1 like a 1-mana creature in hand. He didn't have a Ponder in hand. So he doesn't have a Brainstorm in hand because there's a good chance he would have Brainstormed in response to the Doomsday. So that actually heavily narrows down the stuff that Theo could actually have in hand here. And that might actually be, like, as you mentioned, Wasteland, additional copies of Lightning Bolt, very likely here, like very, very likely, unless he's literally sitting on a bunch of extra lands.
Exactly. So we'll see. Okay, that's no Wasteland. Murktide Regent says, okay, after the Lightning Bolt, opponents at 6, that's going to be big enough. That's a 6/6 Murktide. You don't get another turn. So win this turn or lose, says Theodore. And we will see how Brandon will respond to that. Here's an Edge of Autumn cycle. That's going to sacrifice this Underground Sea. Blue mana floating. Draw a card.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah, there's basically no way to stop him here unless he build a very basically Brandon is not gonna cast any more spells that can be countered, assuming that the other 2 cards on the top of his deck are additional cyclers. But he's somewhat shaking his head.
Yeah, he seems to be thinking, do we set this up wrong? No. Okay, down to 4. Here's a Street Wraith. Oh, we don't have a Cavern. Blue.
Whoa.
Cycle.
I mean, it's
dead.
Yeah. I think he took the game. So, it was quite clear that Theo probably doesn't have anything because Theo wasn't fighting on the last turn. So unless he had drawn into it, he would have had it here. So I think it's kind of okay to not go with Kevin, but I'm not sure why he did it that way. I don't know, maybe he couldn't go one deeper.
I didn't see him cast Thassa's Oracle. Did he win that game?
I think he must have won the game. He must have won the game.
I don't think he did. Well, either way.
Do you think he misbuilt the pile? Oh my god.
I don't know. I didn't see him cast Thassa's Oracle. We'll get an update once we get down there. For now, let's look at the sideboards and take an exact look at
oh my god.
Let's take a look at Theodore Jung's take on Jeskai Delver. Start off with 2 copies of Hydroblast, 2 copies of Meltdown, 2 copies of Pyroblast, 1 red Elemental Blast, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 additional copies of Swords to Plowshares, 2 Force of Negation, 1 Wear Tear, 1 Grafdigger's Cage. If you are up against Doomsday, what do you like, Julian?
Once again, Pyroblasts are going to come in. That's going to do some work for you. Force of Negations, extra copies. Other than that, there's, I guess, Red Elemental Blast also counts among those. And then there's technically, once again, Surgical, which you can bring in if you got stuff you don't want. Swords to Plowshares comes out. Honestly, Forth Eorlingas, we talked about that scenario, but it's probably going to come out. And that already gives you 5 cards. That brings in a bunch of blasts and forces. And I think that's what Theo is going to do.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some merit to keeping the Monarch cards in your deck if you're anticipating a little bit more of a grindy game. Although we have seen Brandon, just kind of try to blow the doors off through, one or 2 pieces of interaction and then just going for a turn 2 kill. So maybe that's not where you want to be. But yeah, maybe trim. I don't know. Could be good. And let's take a look once again. We've seen it once before today. Let's take a look at Brandon Darnell's take on Doomsday. Again, 3 copies of Shieldred, 2 copies of Veil of Summer, 2 copies of Abrupt Decay, 2 Force of Negation, 3 Carpet of Flowers, 1 Hill Spellbomb, and 2 copies of Leyline of the Void. We talked about sideboarding a little bit against Grixis Delver. How do you like sideboarding against Jeskai Delver? Does anything change?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. You got your Carpet of Flowers. Of course, against Jeskai Delver, Shieldred is I say a lot easier to deal with. Brandon doesn't really know how many Swords to Plowshares there are going to be. It's very likely that there are not going to be any after sideboarding. So at least for game 2, I think she's a very fine choice. For game 3, it's basically that gamble where you try to trick the opponent out. You would certainly for game 3 shuffle your sideboard back into the deck to keep the opponent uninformed about whether there's going to be Shieldred. Other than that, Veil of Summer seems okay. I mean, there's a very real scenario where you even sometimes just take out some forces because you grind out the opponent that way. Postboard, you can try to do that, especially if you're relying on cards that carry the game like Shieldred. But you still have to account for Murktide, and Murktide is the one card that can actually go over the top of Shieldred and win the game before she becomes relevant. So,
tough spot. Might just want to get the Veils in the deck and be like, all right, we're just going to try to resolve quick Doomsdays and hope that's going to be good enough if you anticipate the Shieldreds maybe not being the angle you want to take. I can see that.
Yeah.
Well,
so yeah, Carpet of Flowers, that's going to be one of the very big cards. If you can get the carpet down, half your work is already done.
Yeah, and that's certainly kind of the angle that we've seen Brandon take before against the Grixis Delver, where he just went for very, very early carpets, keeping hands off the back of it. Didn't end up needing it because it didn't end up resolving in previous games. But for the time being, I have to imagine we're going to see those come in as well as we see these players starting to get ready for their opening hands. Again, if you're enjoying the content, you're enjoying some Paper Magic coverage, please hit that follow, subscribe button. Follow us on our various other social medias. You can find Nerd Rage Gaming in basically any social media site. Please support the stream. Thank you very much. And let's get things underway with a turn 1 Polluted Delta fetch. Maybe a cantrip here for Brandon.
Most likely. It's not going to be a Carpet of Flowers. We're not seeing any green mana here. What do we see on the other side? We see a Force. Like, is that 2 forces in Theo's hand? Ideally, you want a creature to go with those. That's always like the best way to start out against any kind of combo deck. And yeah, you call it that's the Ponder.
Yeah. And we see a great hand, I think, from Theo, like you mentioned. Multiple forces, Wasteland, Delver. I mean, the whole mix that you want to see. Only problem is you're on the draw. We'll see. It looks like Brandon liked the cards, drew, and passed the turn over to Theo. We'll see how he wants to start things off. Option to Wasteland or get a creature in play. Both plays defensible, I'd argue.
I think if you get a creature in play, you definitely go for the creature here and then follow it up with Wasteland on the next turn. Theo thinking so much about this makes me think
I love this play.
He might actually not have a creature.
Check them. If they don't have a land, get it out. I don't know. It's hard to cast a Doomsday. I don't care. If you're not putting anything, my heuristic is if you don't put anything on the board on your first turn and I have a Wasteland, I'm Wastelanding you. Just get it out.
Okay,
get it out.
Fair.
I'm just going to check it. Do you have another land? I mean, what's the ceiling, right? Like, if they don't have another land, you're dead. You're dead. So, the upside's high. The downside's not very high. Whatever. It's just like, okay, you got to cast a cantrip. Who cares? Obviously, the dream scenario is they don't play anything. You just get to Wasteland it. But, like, no.
Is that how you win your games? You just like Wasteland them like 4 times.
Wasteland people. It's so free. Exactly. It's a duress, and you're not going to like what you see with this duress, Brandon. As we see 3 lands, Delver, which you can't take, 2 forces, and a surgical extraction.
Brandon would actually love to take the Delver there. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, I think if this was a Thoughtseize, you'd snap take the Delver because you can work through some of this hate. But one dress isn't good enough to make it to where Theo is completely shields down, and the Delver represents a lot of pressure. As another Wasteland is picked up, and the graveyard goes underground. See number 2. He's thinking about it. Do I want an Edge of Autumn?
Theo, another graduate from the Drake Sessa School of Magic. Wasteland them out every turn.
Get him out! Put the lands in the graveyard.
Yeah, you go. I want to see more. Okay. Oh, okay.
But he has the Edge of Autumn to sacrifice the land and draw a card. Okay, a little something for your trouble, but
sweet.
Still not great. Bayou, pass the turn. No play from Brandon. Theodore has to be extremely excited about that. Picked up a copy of Mishra's Bauble for turn.
Yeah, at that point, I mean, you can now deploy your Java and do that trick where you Mishra's Bauble on their turn, and then you stack the triggers on your turn to like basically get like a second look at flipping Java, which I guess is what's going to happen here. Of course, you put your shields down for a moment. Especially when you reveal that you drew that Bauble as one of your last 2 draws, makes it less likely that you have a blue card to go with it. What do we do? Okay, looking at the top card. That's a Daze.
Is the top of the library. Well, that's going to be hard to cast for the alternate mode with a Bayou in play.
Yeah, Theo feeling pretty good about this.
I mean, with the Wastelands and like the navigation, like you could have picked up a blue card. So like the Doomsday to go for it's kind of risky. Requires cards that Brandon would have already had access to, talking about things like Dark Ritual and what have you. And with a Daze on top, not changing that mixture at all, I have to imagine Theo feels pretty safe putting the shields down for a turn in order to deploy this Delver of Secrets, as almost certainly going to follow up here.
It's going to be interesting whether It's going to be interesting whether he wants to run the bubble out and draw on Brandon's turn. No, he does not. Okay, we already
did. The bubble's in the graveyard. And 4 Eorlingas is going to be the reveal. And we have a reader for Brandon Darnell. What does this thing do? Theo going to draw it and maybe consider casting it? I mean,
you just cast it for 0. You become the Monarch. You don't even care. Like, at this point, you just want the Monarchy because Brandon seems to be somewhat struggling. Hasn't played a land now, and you just keep drawing 2 cards a turn while Java is beating you down. This is horrible for Brandon. Like, recovering from this probably is going to require a couple of carpets.
You see it on screen there. Create X2/2s. We're going to choose 0. Going to go after that with a Force of Will, and you can see that would create Monarch when you deal combat damage with Delver. So that's not going to happen. Force of Will pitching the Daze is going to stop that. And now, I mean, Theo has to be pretty excited to be getting a Force in exchange for that. Has to be something that he's relatively excited about, especially if he has ever picked up a blue card to kind of pair with his own Force of Will. But a nice little pickup. The reason that Theo is in Jeskai and clearly left some copies in this matchup.
Yeah, so that makes me think that Theo probably took out bolts, which I think is very defensible, and just keeps these in to have more extra card draw and draw the game out a little bit further, which is like totally fine strategy.
Could be a threat too. Like, I mean, that's a big thing. That's what moves the needle for me. The fact it could be worth some amount of like threats, because a lot of time this is about that. He picked up a Force of Negation as the draw for turn. That's going to be a big one. Abrupt Decay, a big one for Brandon. Can't counter that one. So there goes all the pressure. But we have a follow-up Dragon's Rage Channeler.
And that should already be in the air, right? You have a creature, you have an artifact. Yeah, we got everything we want.
I think we have instant. I think we have all of it. I think we have instant, sorcery, land, creature, artifact. I think we got 5 over.
Perfect. Yeah, it's actually a 4/4. We don't know that, but it's a hidden mode. Like if you overachieve, it goes even further.
yeah. Wow. Yeah, the card needed more help for sure. As here's a Brainstorm for Brandon, help to maybe break out of some of this weird mana situation caused by the Wastelands that Theodore has presented. Suddenly under a little bit of pressure is Brandon.
Yeah, he's probably looking. I mean, we don't really know what he has in hand. Ideally, he already has his Dark Ritual and his Doomsday in hand, and now he's looking for some kind of protection, maybe some discard. But the problem is now, even without the creature on board, every turn you pass, you're not getting the Monarchy, and Theo's drawing 2 cards a turn, which every single turn puts the game further out of reach. So at this point, as much as it hurts, you probably really want to go for Dark Ritual Doomsday here and pray. That's the best thing you can do because you're not beating the Monarchy. It's just like such a big pain now. And I think he might go for that. I'd have the Veil of Summer. Yeah, this looks very much like a Veil of Summer player.
We don't have the Monarchy in play quite yet, although we are going to go ahead and Dark Ritual into Shieldred. That one can be forced, but can't be Force of Negation. And yeah, it looks like we are going to go ahead and force that. A little 2-for-2 exchange there, Dark Ritual Shieldred. And then, is that a Daze backup? Oh, but he can't cast. It doesn't work. All that mana for Theo, and we have a Surveil here in response. Happening for Theo. So this Daze left in hand for Brandon's not going to be good enough. And Shieldred's going to get countered by this Force of Will, and Brandon functionally out of resources.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the Monarchy, I would actually say, okay, Brandon is still in this game. He is gonna be like beaten down by that DRC, but now Theodore like picking up 2 cards a turn. It's gonna be so rough because at some point you like if you go down to let's say 7, then your Doomsday is going to put you to 3, which makes like cycling a lot harder, fetching, like even using Force of Will and stuff. Theo is like in such a good spot. And I mean, honestly, after all, this is a very typical game of how this matchup plays out.
The Forth Eorlingas got countered. It got forced by a force pitching Daze many moons ago. No Monarchy.
Oh, yeah. No Monarchy. Actually telling me that's no Monarchy. Yeah.
I was like, wait, 2 cards. What are you? Anyways.
No. You're right.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, you've talked a lot about how problematic that would be for Brandon if it resolved, but it did not. And wow, we're actually going to get it back. So I spoke too soon. I told you there's no Monarchy. It looks like there might indeed be a Monarchy with this Mystic Sanctuary, putting the Forth Eorlingas back on top.
I have seen the future. That's actually going to be, what does it actually make? I would guess it makes Knights. I never actually looked into the creature type.
Yeah, it makes like 2/2s with haste. Yeah, okay, we're going to reread this thing because now the X is not 0. X now equals 1. And if we get the card back up on screen, I just concedes.
You got it.
Yeah, I can't beat that. It's a 2-turn clock. Matters quite a bit. It's going to be 5 damage. It's going to get it done in 2 turns. Brandon sees no outs, and we're going to pick it up. Theodore, a dominant performance over Brandon Darnell on his take of Doomsday. We saw him beat Grixis Delver earlier. The Jeskai version seemed to be able to get it done there.
Yeah, what a great play. With just like actually keeping this in the main deck and using it to win the game. I'm absolutely loving this. This is one of those cards that I think we're actually going to see more. I didn't expect it to see in Diver. I thought we were going to see, and I mean, we do see it a lot in Red-White Initiative, but maybe that mode that we saw earlier that drew out the Force of Will of just like 2 mana trying to get the Monarchy is something worthwhile going forward in Legacy. And if that's the case, all the more power to that card.
Mattered a lot. Yeah. Mattered a ton. So with that, I believe we're moving on to a backup match that is going to be between Chris Smith and Stefan Barak. Let me see if we have that ready to go right now. Yeah, it's okay. It sounds like we're about to head down to that. And just to give you a little bit of a spoiler ahead of time, while you people are here and enjoying some legacy content, which we do appreciate, we're looking at 2 monocolored decks, and we're coming from this 3-color deck setup to 2 monocolored decks. Of course, I'm talking about the mono black, kind of like prison deck that Chris Smith has access to. Okay, we're actually going to cut to an interview before the backup match. I see what's happening here. And then against a mono blue 8 cast, but we will get to that in just a moment. We're actually going to cut to an interview with Theo about his take on Jeskai Delver, something I have never seen before, and something I am very excited to dive right into. Hello.
Hey, Theo.
Hey.
And here we are. There's Theo. How's it going? Congratulations on your match win there. We got to see that on camera. And what a cool deck you're piloting this weekend.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
No problem.
We were wondering,
you're
actually playing 3 copies of Forth. We actually struggle to pronounce the card. Maybe you can have us help with that. But
I think it's Forth Eorlingas, but
it sounds so easy when you say it. You make it sound so easy.
Yeah, I know
Tell us about that.
As well as you do. Yeah. So I first got the idea of a card when my friend Quinn Tonoli, Quiniac, put it in Red White Initiative in the Star City like a week or 2 before this tournament, and I'm like, that card looks broken. You can take the Monarch on 2, and like later in the game it scales. It can also be stacked on top of the deck with Sanctuary. That happened once during the match, and yeah, it's not really inspired deck building. It's just taking a very good card and putting it into Delver, which has been what people have been doing for about a decade now. Yeah.
Is that how it works most of the time, that you deploy your turn 1 creature and then you just like get the 2 mana X equals 0 mode on?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. But I haven't found myself doing it all that much because, you know, they might remove your creature. I usually tend to like do it on X equals 1 or 2, just so you can ensure you get the monarchy. But yeah, I guess against combo, because they're light on like creature removal, you can just go turn 1 guy and then Forth Eorlingas and have the monarchy for the rest of the game. So yeah, it does come up.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very impressive performance. And overall, I mean, when you're talking about, you know, a lot of legacy deck building over the years, kind of representing just sticking new broken cards in Delver, a lot of people this weekend seem to kind of be reaching for the Orcish Bowmasters angle and going for like a Grixis Delver setup. And, you know, this Jeskai playing the new Monarch card, I think is a very, very interesting take, especially with how light you've ended up on white cards. So you can still support things like Mystic Sanctuary and like only a few copies of Swords to Plowshares. I like that you didn't go hard on that. So, you know, give yourself some credit. Yeah. I think it's very inspiring deck building, and you know, a very, very dominant performance so far. Looking like, you know, you've done a great job felling all of your opponents, and you know, with you number 50 on the leaderboard, you're somebody that we've seen, you know, be very successful in NRG in the past, and you know, we're included in the championship before. Talk to me a little bit right before we wrap this up about, you know, your position on the leaderboard right now and what this weekend, you know, the conversion on points and what you're looking to do.
You know, I didn't go into this weekend with the intention of like securing some spot on the leaderboard. I just came to play some Magic with my friends, have some fun.
Yes.
And, you know, if I end up doing well in this event and that puts me in contention for the leaderboard, then that's great. If not, I can live with that.
The best attitude to have.
Yeah.
Just fine with it either way. I love it so much. Well, thank you very much, Theo. I really appreciate your time and you getting a chance to talk to us. Like I said, the Jeskai Delver deck's really, really cool. I wish you luck in the rest of your rounds. And we're going to cut over now to our backup feature match. Thank you for your time.
Good luck. Appreciate it.
All right, and here we are diving right in to our backup feature match. We see Chris Smith here on the left, someone that we've seen be very successful in the NRG series as well, including this weekend, was in the top 8 of the Modern Showdown. Here is now 4-0 in the Legacy Trial. So very, very great weekend for Christmas so far. Stefan Barak on the left, I'm sorry, on the right, playing Mono Blue 8 cast. And Chris going to kick things off with a turn 0 leyline. And we have Ancient Tomb as the turn 1 play from Stefan. So a little bit of able to get sneak permanents in play, despite not being on the play, is Chris Smith.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting because in Chris's deck, there's basically like 2 different kinds of combos built in there. Like you can technically use ill-gotten gains if you're on the play to completely take out your opponent's hand as soon as the first turn. You can also go for the more traditional approach to comboing out the opponent, which is like Helm of Obedience together with Leyline of the Void or Doughty White Walker. But on top of that, we also have 4 copies of maybe the card Stefan wants to see the very least. We have 4 copies of Karn the Great Creator, which is basically shutting off all of Stefan's deck.
Yeah, gotta get that one in play first. And normally, I mean, this mono black deck does have, not very many 1-drops that they care about in the face of this chalice. However, Dark Rituals is among the mix. You don't get to cast any of your Thoughtseize. You don't get to cast any of your Dark Rituals. So as much as this Chalice of 1 may not be as good in this matchup as in others, it can play a very important role, especially if Chris kept a little bit of a land light hand, as Stefan actually able to deploy an Urza Saga to pair with this Ancient Tomb and going to be able to start making some constructs right away. Here's a Chrome Mox here on turn 2, causing Stefan to pause. That one's going to come in. Imprint. Trigger is going to imprint a Grief. Oh, and there's signatures, and there's Karn the Great Creator. And Force of Will, yeah, that one has to get forced. That's going to pitch an Emery. Need to take care of that one right away. Life point lost by Stefan. So he very quickly recognized that's the card I don't want to see. You called it out. Got to put it in the graveyard with Force of Will.
Yeah, and at this point, like, Chris' deck has a lot of cards that are okay on their own. There's not the great synergies like Shieldred, Grief, Opposition Agent. They're okay. We got Okish Bowmasters in there, but he doesn't really have a way to actively stop what Stefan is doing over there unless he finds his own Karn. So that could be a problem. Like we've seen this 8-cast deck, I think, a couple of times before now. It can grow out of control very, very quickly. And as we are seeing right now, it can also put on like a very serious clock. Like these construct tokens are gonna be like at least 4/4. This already makes them like the next one a 5/5. This is a very serious clock, and Chris could have, let's say, the Helm, maybe, just another Karn.
Well, another card. I mean, Karn we mentioned is like a big problem for the Stefan Barak's deck. Maybe it's a little bit more mitigated when there's constructs already in play. So Stefan going to take a quick look and a quick read of Karn and what that could represent. But yeah, being able to fire up these large constructs already a big deal. We're looking at 3/3s right now, looking to upgrade to 4/4s as soon as we make another one. And then there's an artifact that's going to come off of the Saga, presumably, and that's going to make them into 5/5s. But yeah. Helm of Obedience coming to hand right away, and that's really what this Karn is going to be able to get done. It doesn't need to shut down Stefan's deck forever, and if it dies now, it's okay, because this Helm of Obedience is threatening to just kill Stefan with the help of Leyline of the Void.
Yeah, what I expect Stefan to do there is go for a Pithing Needle on the next turn, just like name the Helm of Obedience. If he's like, okay, I guess Chris is explaining the combo right now, and for those who don't know, the Helm, you activate it for at least 1, and then it's going to mill until a creature hits the opponent's graveyard. But because we have Leyline, there's never going to be a creature hitting the opponent's graveyard, so you end up like basically exiling the opponent's deck. So Stefan needs to go to 3, use the 3rd chapter, and get the Pithing Needle down. And as far as I can tell, there's probably nothing that Chris can really do about that. So he got away.
Good enough. We'll see. He's making another construct. So, I mean, we're playing on here. We have another construct, so we can clear the Karn, presuming there's no, crazy, zero mana tricks, which I would say, is not likely, but, we're in Modern. There's a lot of them. So we're going to see exactly what he can present. You called out Pithing Needle, and we do see a copy of Pithing Needle. Have to imagine that's going to be the grab for Stefan. Going to make sure that he sees it, and it looks like he does. That is a Pithing Needle. Yeah, I'm going to name help. You see the little hand wave. Yeah, that thing, the helmet. The Helm of Obedience.
The worst thing that could have happened to Stefan is like drawing a Pithing Needle, because he's got that Chalice in 1 down, but thankfully, like fortunately for him, he didn't do that. And yeah, he's going to shut down that. He's going to take out the Karn. And from there, Chris once again needs to present something, and it's like, it's getting like very hard for now.
No, that doesn't work yet. Okay, went to tap the Mox Opal to cast stuff. Can't do that quite yet, but we can attack the Karn. Go ahead and clear that off the battlefield. That's 2 Karns down. So we mentioned that Karn could be a huge problem for the Mono Blue 8-cast deck. Has been able to answer 2 of them and has that Helm covered for the moment. We'll see what Chris can do to respond to that. Still 20 life. Hasn't lost a ton of life. Of course, Stefan, with these Ancient Tombs, has been doing a ton of damage to himself. Now looking at 13 life points left, having never been attacked by Chris.
He's also looking at the sideboard once again, which makes me feel like, does he have like the 3rd Karn, and then is going to try to grab something like an Ensnaring Bridge, which could be a way to do it. I guess Wormcoil Engine is another thing that comes to mind, but if it's another Karn, well, the Ensnaring Witch will eventually be overcome. So I don't know.
I mean, you can play Filigree Silex, right? And then that blows up all of the tokens. Does that say non-token?
You
Yeah,
got a
so
point.
it's just a ratchet bomb. So
Yeah.
you can blow up the tokens and the chalice and the Mox Opal. There's card number 3. Usually Stefan's seeking to see, like, come on, are we kidding? We're not done with this? I thought we had enough of this. I already
Looks like
killed
he's
2 of these.
plussing. He's plussing, taking out the chalice. Sure, that works.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you could just plus, take out the chalice. That removes an artifact from play, and I mean, the card's going to die anyway. But a 4-mana removal spell for the chalice, it's not nothing. It's not nothing.
Yeah, he needs to send both constructs to take out the Karn here. Stefan is thinking about it. Maybe attacking Chris. No, we're going to take out the Karn. Sure. Like, you got 4 Karns in your deck. I already answered 3. Bring on the 4th one. Come on, do it.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, like, we can do this all day. I will just attack all of your cards. I promise. Well, now 1-drops are unlocked, so we'll see exactly what Chris is holding on to that he was so interested in kind of clearing. Because I mean, he could have grabbed a card to his hand, right? And then, like, you know, you have it covered there. It's just like, your card's gonna die no matter what. You either could have wished for a card or you could have killed the chalice. He chose to kill the chalice, which speaks to potentially having some 1-drops he's looking to resolve.
Yeah. The only way you can really get rid of that needle is like if you animate it with a Karn and then have Orcish Bowmasters to take it out. But that's asking a lot at this point, and I'm not sure that's actually what's going to happen here, especially like considering we need the 4th Karn. But Chris got something to figure out here. You mentioned that Thoughtseize and Dark Ritual, previously locked under Chalice, might be freed again. Maybe especially Dark Ritual is going to allow you to like double spell into something relevant here. But it's gonna be tough. It might actually be the 4th Karn. Like, call me crazy, but it almost feels like, okay, we run this one out.
Okay, yeah. You know, player land. Go ahead and blow up that city trader. So we have an extra land. Gonna go start developing our mana. The Helm's in play. Yeah, I mean, we need to find a way to clear this needle. And as soon as you do, you're covered. As here's a Seat of the Synod added to the battlefield for Stefan.
Yeah, Stefan's just like, okay, take 5, or maybe even more. At 10, at least.
Yeah. Well, there's Thought Monitor. Well, that card is going to really get the party started here for Stefan.
Yeah, now Chris is taking 12. Like, seriously, like, if you can chain something, now we're taking 14.
Yeah, I mean, each artifact we get in play is 2 more damage. Can we assemble a kill? No, we can't, but 14 is quite a bit of damage. Counting it up, Chris counting it up too, says, yeah, I'll take that, down to 6. And suddenly, lethal on board from 2 lethal threats.
Yeah, and there's literally nothing Chris can have here. I'd be happy to be proven wrong, because then I would actually learn something. But right now, that's just like, we're going to look at those Aquaman cards. Yeah, that's the Agadim Awakening, I believe. That's the land on the other side of it.
Indeed. Yeah, no main deck kind of like Wraths or anything, right? Like no Ratchet Bombs or anything like that.
Damnation.
A whole lot. It would need to be like Karn plus Dark Ritual. Karn number 4 plus Dark Ritual. Doesn't have it. Chris Smith going to scoop him up. And Stefan Brock, someone that we called is maybe going to have a little bit of trouble in this matchup, able to dispatch of 3 Karns to win game number 1. Some real impressive stuff. Let's take a quick look at how he is going to adapt in the sideboard. Of course, here's a Mono Blue 8 cast. We've seen a little bit of this deck today. 1 Haywire Might, 1 Brazen Borrower, 2 Fairy Macabre, 1 Subtlety, 1 Hurkyl's Recall, 3 Dismember, 3 Force of Negation, 1 Grafdigger's Cage, 1 Soul God Lantern, 1 Karakas. Julian, what do you like for the matchup?
Yeah, it's got to be the Force of Negations coming back in again. Haywire Might certainly is going to come as well. Other than that, you could bring in the Brazen Borrower to, you know, sometimes break up the combo if Chris has like a very quick kill. That's what I think I want in the matchup. There's nothing else that really jumps out at me from the sideboard.
Yeah, a lot of the main deck game, I'm sure, is the forces kind of mattering, and then, you know, being able to just kind of punch through like we saw him able to do. So let's go ahead and move on to Christmas Mono Black combo deck. In the sideboard, we have the 2 additional copies of Orcish Bowmasters to fill out the set, 2 Plague Engineers, 1 Wormcoil Engine, 1 Chalice of the Void, 1 Tormod Script, 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Liquid Metal Coating, 1 the Filigree Silex, 1 Ensnaring Bridge, 1 Trinisphere, 1 Helm Awakening, 1 Mycosynth Lattice, and 1 Vault of Whispers. A lot of card board stuff here. What do you like?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You could bring in something like the Chalice, especially on the play, because if you get down the Chalice for 0 on the play, that's going to be very big. Whereas later on in the game, like once you get your Karn down, then you wish for your Chalice. That's more like a turn 3, it can be a turn 2 play, actually, since you're playing Dark Ritual. Technically, it can be a turn 1 play, but it's rough. I think because we have so much mana acceleration, I might actually leave it in the board and try to get a Karn down and immediately land the Chalice in 0, but you want to do that in first. And so now, after thinking about it, I'm actually bringing in the Chalice, and all of the other stuff, Orcish Bowmaster is good. Orcish Bowmaster like punishes all the card draw that the Edgar stack has. Is there anything you want to take out here that makes me want Orcish Bowmasters even more? Like, I mean, Ill-Gotten Gains is cute. Like, if you have the opening hand, we can basically win the game here. Okay, we already have Shieldred to punish like all the extra draws. A position agent, I guess that stops the search.
Like only the Saga?
Yeah,
like,
maybe that one goes out.
Search? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can do some small trims if you think the Orcish Bowmaster is the angle you want to take. Like you said, it does stop a lot of the draw, and a lot of the initial creatures are small. But if you're facing down something like a Kappa Cannoneer, it may not be enough. So we'll see exactly the angle we want to take. We already have a lot of draw punish in the form of Shielders and Orcish Bowmasters, so might just be the Chalice and, you know, discipline mulligans to cards like we saw Chris do. But we need to have a little bit of a way to defend it and kind of power it out a little bit faster. So with that, let's cut back to the match. The players should be just about ready to go. Looks like they both have hands. See if they're both keeping these hands. And it looks like they are. And we're kicking things off the Snow-Covered Swamp, passing of the turn. No, turn one play from Chris Smith. Ancient Tomb for Stefan.
It's going to be interesting which kind of opening 8 cast it's going to have. You know, sometimes you have like the sluggish behemoth that builds up to like the really big turn on like turn 3. And sometimes you explode on the board, but you open yourself up to like any kind of interaction that Chris probably doesn't really have in the matchup. So Steve is free reign. And he still making up his mind. Where are we going to go with this? We're going to go down to 18 and run out. What is it going to be? There's not really all that much. Yeah,
Chalice on 1. Okay, I mean, it was effective last game, right? Like, it's something clearly Chris cared about. Picked it off with a Karn. And here is what looks to be an Urborg as the second land.
Must be another Karn, right? Oh,
Dothy Voidwalker. That's going to start to set up the Helm combo. Also is going to do a lot to mitigate things like Emery that could come down on the opposing side of the board. You know, normally this Graveyard Hate's just kind of there as like a combo, and if it happens to be good in the matchup, that's extra sugar. It is actually somewhat good here, being able to shut down Emery.
Yeah, you know, and at some point, you might even be able to steal something like a Force of Will to push through your combo if you actually need it. Voidwalker, one of my favorite cards recently printed, like Urza Saga, Voidwalker, all that kind of stuff. Like, I love that we have these cards available in Legacy. They make for so much cool gameplay. And Stefan on, yeah, as we talked about, this is one of those slower hands, double checking, making sure which cards, like, it really only all that much affects Emery, which, like, gets turned off by, you know what, maybe Emery actually was completely sided out. Knowing that this mono black deck usually has, like, 8 leyline effects in the main deck, you might actually just, like, straight up take out Emery.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely could see that. And it looks like we're playing Pithing Needle into the Chalice. That's going to trigger the Chalice and exile this Pithing Needle under the Dothy Voidwalker. So an attempt to Pithing Needle Dothy Voidwalker, I believe, happened there. Unfortunately, Chalice's Void is going to prevent that from happening, which means the Mox Opal does not currently make mana.
This might actually be a pass here. If that's not extra land.
I mean, it may very well be. I mean, I think that might have been his other artifact, and it certainly was. And back to Chris we go. No land. Attack for 3.
Oh, too bad. Too bad. I mean, Chris is feeling pretty happy here.
Any cards? No.
Any cards?
I mean, I can imagine if we had a card, we'd be casting it no hesitation. So
Shieldred, you name it. I mean, you could name out Shieldred here and just be like, okay, you got the Force of Will. Okay, then later on, my Karn is probably gonna resolve. Like, both of those cards are so good here, and Shieldred even ends the game pretty quickly. Nothing.
No play. Okay.
Huh. That, like, I
don't know. Like Chris had some options. We holding something up?
I mean, at that point, it can only really be a position agent, right? But what is this? 4 mana? Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay, we're using the Ancient Tomb for black via Urborg, so we don't take any damage, and we're casting Opposition Agent on Instep, and that's going to get Force of Willed.
Oh, that's interesting. We don't even have Saga yet. Huh.
Force of Negation. I think the clock's just enough, right? Because you can't tap your Ancient Tomb again. Like,
you're right.
It's going to be a 2-turn clock. Yeah, it's a 2-turn clock. And you don't get to tap your Ancient Tomb anymore.
This is perfect for Chris. Like, probably his least impactful card in the matchup right now. We are just like sitting here. Okay, we have to force this, otherwise the clock doubles and we like lose in 2 attacks. Chris going back. Okay, you know what? Now my big heavy hitters are gonna come.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. They don't, Opposition Agent worth something there for sure. And here is the Karn and everything coming up. Chris here is now that Mox Opal is going to be completely shut off. In fact, speaking of shut off, we're just going to blow it up. And under the Dothy zone, it goes. 6 counters on Karn, passing the turn back to Stefan. And now, I mean, if Chris finds another mana source, then everything is just over right away. Here comes Mox Opal. Here comes Urza's Bauble, but none of them work thanks to this Karn. We're taking a look at Dothy. I think that this game is very, very
yeah. I mean,
Sure enough,
Stefan
the
gets
writing's
another
on the
shot,
wall.
right? Like the writing is very much on the wall, especially if we get to some more mana next turn, then we can
And
try to
Stefan
get the
agrees.
Magnificent
I mean,
Atlas.
it may take 4 more turns or whatever, but none of your cards work. And all I have to do is find a single mana source, and you are dead. So Chris Smith picking up a very quick win there in game number 2. And given the kind of lack of sideboarding that we did probably, and the time constraints that we have, we're actually going to dive straight into game 3. So there you go. Magic, ta-da, poof. Here into game 3 we are. Chris has, put on a jacket. So that's how you know things are getting serious. And here we go. Starting with turn 0 ley line is Chris as we move to Stefan's turn 1. Here we go.
I wonder if Stefan actually brought in the subtlety. I didn't actually think about it previously, but considering how big of a deal Karn is, at least you get to buy like 1 turn with it.
Yeah, I mean, and like if you're able to hard cast it or whatever, then it's like pressure for Karn. That's like worth something. Here's a Shadow Spear. That one's going to resolve thanks to Urza's Saga. Lotus Petal deployed as well. A few more cards to work with has Stefan.
Not the most inspiring of openings, but if we have, let's say, an Ancient Tomb, we can start putting on pressure next turn. Of course, Chris, he has plans. He's going for the Chromox that... Oh, whoa, okay.
Force of Negation pitching, Emery!
Okay, I mean, that's the way to play the game.
Let's go and just pitch it, yeah. Get it out of here.
That's the way to play the game. If you think like, okay, I got a pretty quick clock, probably like an Ancient Tomb coming down here. Yeah, there it is. And
we didn't.
Did
we missed.
Saga? Okay, well, I guess.
Oh man. Oh, here we go. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. We were pretty excited about the Saga. I think you can't miss this.
Actually,
Sagas are like
I had this thing coming up. Exactly, right? My ruling was that I kind of had missed it and I didn't get the second chapter, but afterwards I was told they weren't sure whether it's true. So we will see how this works out. If Stefan does get the second counter, he can start putting on a ton of pressure and it's like gonna be on Chris. Like at some point, if Chris is banking on Karn being good, that's like we might see a repeat of the first game, right? Where Chris actually had like 3 Karns and they didn't even matter because Urza Saga was just too good.
Oh no, we're picking cards up.
Okay, we're rewinding. Perfect.
But yeah, whatever. Okay, but we're just redeploying everything anyway. Doesn't matter. Okay, yeah, like I thought, you can't really miss that. It's like your draw step or whatever. It's like upticking sagas is like one of those like just happens game actions kind of things as far as I understand it. Not a judge, but my understanding is you can't really miss that. So snow covered swamp to join swamp. Back to Stefan we go. Does not make a creature on end step. Could we have? I didn't see what we necessarily did.
You could have. Yeah, you could have.
But maybe playing a little quickly here is Spawn Barak. Barrick? Could be Stephen Barrick. I don't know. I'm so bad with pronunciations, Julian. I don't know what I'm doing. I just pronounce things phonetically.
My camera is his last name, so I don't even know.
I just pronounce things however they are. As Haywire Might has joined the fray. Now that actually is going to matter quite a bit here. Threatens to pick off the Leyline of the Void, which not only will turn your Emeries back on, which are obviously still in the deck, but is going to also shut off combo potential for Chris, right? Relying often on like Dothy or Leyline to just kind of end up in play naturally as the game progresses. And Thoughtcast going to be the follow-up. Respond, Orcish Bowmasters. Okay.
Oh, that's actually going to take out the Haywire Might, unless I guess we can still use it to take out the Leyline if we want to.
We have a pedal, so I think you can respond here if that's where the damage is going to go.
Yeah. Like for Stefan, it's just like going to be important not to get flustered here. Like he maybe missed that second construct token at the end step, but right now you just like you play to the best of your ability, and I mean you're very much still in this game. So I guess we take out the Leyline.
Oh yeah, this game, yeah. So we have Shadow Spear, we have a construct token. That's a recipe for success. All this stuff's exiled. You're not going to gain the life which actually might matter. Because of Haywire Might.
That's cute. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it has to die. It has to die to gain the life. So no life coming for Steven here. But 2 cards are going to come, which is going to make the Orcish army into a 3/3 and deal 2 additional points. Not enough to pick off the construct. Construct's now a 3/3, but is able to go face and maybe be able to turn up the heat on the clock. We'll see what Steven drew here.
Let's see.
Another Saga.
This is great. This is absolutely great. So now at this point, I think this is where Chris like gets to farm mana most likely if he has any kind of acceleration like a Soul Land or Dark Ritual. But I guess Dark Ritual already at last turn. He needs to make something happen here, and it doesn't look too exciting. I mean, it's kind of cool that you got this big Orc army, but the construct is gonna swarm you rather quickly, and without a proper reset button in the deck, you might just pass the turn. Yeah, looks like.
Yeah, just Urborg past the turn. No real mana going on. And let me get a read of the Orcish Bowmasters, trying to figure out exactly what's going to trigger that thing. Yeah, like you said, I think just building up constructs and working to equip the Shadow Spear to a construct is going to do a lot to win the race, even in the face of a fairly large Orcish army. As here's a Dismember on in step 4 life going to be paid. That's going to go after the Bowmasters themselves. There they go. And that's going to hit the exile. No, sorry, it's going to hit the graveyard. Leyline is now gone. So 3/3 Orcish army, the only thing on Chris's side of the battlefield, as that Saga is going to get ticked up to 2. And now things start to look a little dicey for Chris. Seed of the Synod deployed. Equip Shadow Spear. Combat. Attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. Yeah, we got 5.
No token. Okay, we could have made a token, deal 1 more damage. Steven deciding against that. Holding up that activation. Hopefully he's gonna go for it at the end step.
You just push 1 point, and if there's something like a Dark Ritual into Karn, Filigree Silex or whatever, you actually kind of get blown out a little bit. Whereas if you just wait till end step, maybe you either choose to or choose not to activate based on what happens. I don't know. You get some options. You're probably making a token no matter what. Maybe you get the damage, but we also might just be working with so much overwhelming damage that it doesn't matter too much, as City of Traders is deployed for Chris.
It's going to be interesting. What is Chris up to? What can Chris actually do to basically stem the bleeding here? There might be some kind of line where you go Karn minus, try to find the Ensnaring Bridge to sit behind it for a while. Other than that, there's not really all that much. Grief, okay, but
Grief, okay. I mean, that blocks in 3/2. It's not nothing. And is going to get that, of course, very powerful ETB trigger. Look at some of the cards that Steven is still working with. Orcish Bowmasters in the graveyard. Why do we care about the graveyard? Very macabre. Going to take out the Orcish Bowmasters, and that's the last card in hand. So not going to get anything out of the Grief trigger. So everything's about what's on the board right now. As another construct's going to be made. Back to Steven we go. Draw step. Tick up on Saga, going to make a 3rd construct, and now the pressure is on. Covered for this turn. Next turn, things are going to start to get really dicey as we start searching with Urza's Saga.
It's interesting that he brought in that Fairy Macabre. I very much assume that since this is closed decklist during the Swiss, Stefan didn't really know what Chris was playing. So when you see mono black, there's a very real chance that you're either up against some kind of scam deck list or even something much more reanimator focused. So he brought that in just in case. Would have been actually funny if Chris had some kind of ill-gotten gains line, and then that would have screwed it up. But right now we're just going for the robot line. We make robots, we turn robots sideways, and that's what we do. And it looks like
fortunately, Saga's going to do more than a good enough job here to cover a lot. As here's Pithing Needle. That one likely going to name Karn. Yeah, I mean, Macabre hits Agadeem's Awakenings and Ill-Gotten Gains. I guess it's not nothing if you really think you just have no cards for the matchup, but tough spot to beat for sure. Oh, well, like I said, the constructs are where you do want to be, and that is where Steven is right now, as we're going to see likely some attacking getting done here. Urza's Bauble adding to the mix, and a huge attack here. Let's get a total on that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have an 8/8 and a 9/9. So the blocks don't look very good. We're in chumping territory. Can't do any kind of double block cuteness. And going to lose 9-6. Steven's going to gain 9-24. And now Chris Smith back against the wall, needs to have a huge draw step here.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. That, I mean, every deck has upsides and downsides. For the mono black deck, it's not very good at catching up unless you get the combo down, which is the ultimate catch-up mechanism. You combo out your opponent. But when you're forced to play a fair game, as this game has played out for most of the turns, you fall behind, and it's very hard for you to come back. Yeah, and Chris sees it.
And that's it. Yeah, Chris just draws and concedes. Wow. I mean, the power of Urza's Saga certainly can't be understated. And, in the face of Karn's Artifact Disruption, all that stuff, was able to get the job done, was Stefan Berk, and able to advance on And of course, Chris Smith taking a loss, but first in the tournament, still a few more rounds left to play. And speaking of a few more rounds, we are going to be transitioning out of the booth. We had a great time with all of you today. Thank you very much for your support. If you enjoyed the stream here brought to you by Nerd Rage Gaming, please like, follow, subscribe, support Nerd Rage anywhere that they are present. If you can't make it out to the events, you can buy their cards online. You can follow them on social media, support what they do here, because the stuff and the work that they do here is very, very important to Magic and paper Magic coverage. So thank you very much for being here. I am Drake Sasser. Julian, any parting words for our viewers before we sign off for the rest of
It was my pleasure. If you want to see more of this, let us know. Let us know on social media. Follow us here. Give us shout outs about everything that's going on. Let your friends know, especially when we're playing Legacy. I know that's always a fan favorite. And Greg, it was my pleasure commentating with you. I'm going to be tuned. I want to see how this plays out. I want to see whether the creative technique deck that we saw early on in round, I think, 2 makes it all the way to the top 8. That was my prediction. If you have not seen that, you go back after this tournament, not right now, and you check out round 2 of our matches here, because this is a deck that you literally almost never get to see because it doesn't exist outside of paper. That's it from us, and everybody, stay tuned. We're going to have a new crew coming here in a moment and continue for the rest of the Swiss and the top 8.
We'll see you in round 7.